They constructed an entire swimming pool complex right in the middle of my ranch, a clubhouse with a tiki bar, lawn chairs, umbrellas, fenced all around. Changing rooms, too. There was even a big "Welcome to Cedar Hills" community pool sign planted smack dab in my land. I'd been gone for just 3 weeks. I left for a cattle auction in Wyoming, assuming everything at home was fine. I had someone checking on the ranch animals and the irrigation system, so I wasn't worried about much. The far southern part of the property wasn't really used during the summer, so I didn't think anything of it. But when I drove back onto my land and followed the dirt road toward the fence line, that's when I saw it. Music blasting loud, teens diving into a sparkling new pool, adults grilling under a shaded cabana. There was even a banner flapping in the breeze that read "Home members only" right over the gate. I slammed on the brakes so hard my truck skidded. I stood there frozen, eyes wide. They'd built a pool and clubhouse on my property, and that wasn't the worst part. A man in a white polo and sunglasses waved me off when I walked up to the fence, shouting, "Hey, this is private property, HOA access only." I nearly lost it. This was my land and the deed was in my name. How on earth could anyone just show up and build a community center here? Then I spotted the sign bolted to the fence. Public use Cedar Hills HOA Extended Commons, approved by Board 6 in Nero. Approved by what board? I didn't even live in the Cedar Hills HOA. I never signed up for it. My ranch wasn't part of their neighborhood, but somehow, these people had declared my land theirs. And the worst part? I hadn't even reached the house yet to see what else they'd done. Before I get into what I found at the main barn, you need to understand how we ended up here. My name's Daniel Morgan. I'm 52, a proud Texan, and I've lived on this land for over 20 years. My late wife Marlene and I bought the ranch in our 30s, dreaming of building something that no one could take away from us. We raised 2 boys here, Zach and Jeremy, both grown and moved out now. I still run the ranch full-time, raising cattle, a few horses, selling feed locally, and doing side jobs like fencing, welding, and tractor work. It's honest, hard work, and I love the peace it brings. The Cedar Hills HOA started forming about 5 years ago just west of my place. Developers moved in, cleared the trees, and put up cookie-cutter houses on 1-acre lots. Soon enough, they had a clubhouse, a board, a newsletter, and rules about mailbox heights and grass length. At first, they mostly kept to themselves, and I kept to mine. But gradually, they began crossing lines. One time I caught some kids riding dirt bikes through my northern pasture. Another time, someone set up a bounce house for an HOA birthday party right near my back fence. When I politely asked the parents to move it, they acted like I was the trespasser. Still, I tried to be neighborly. I knew not everyone grew up around property lines, fences, or ranch life, so I let the small stuff slide. That was my mistake. A few months ago, a new HOA president was elected, Christine Blakely. She was one of those polished, clipboard-carrying types with a voice that sounded like sugar and vinegar mixed together. Always wearing beige, always ready with a complaint. She knocked on my door one day and told me the HOA wanted to beautify the extended commons and create more leisure space for community families. I told her politely my land wasn't part of Cedar Hills, so that the HOA had no jurisdiction over my ranch and the property lines were legally defined. She smiled and handed me a manila envelope, saying, "We'll take that into consideration." I tossed the envelope on the counter and forgot about it. I had calves to feed and irrigation systems to fix. Weeks later, I left for the Wyoming auction, checking in with my ranch hand Jesse every few days. He said all was well, cows fed, hay stacked, nothing out of place. But now, standing in the south field watching a woman in yoga pants handing out popsicles to kids swimming in a pool on my land, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. I drove up the ranch road, dust swirling behind my tires, shaking with rage. When I finally got inside the house, everything seemed normal, quiet, peaceful until I stepped into the kitchen. Papers were strewn all over the counter. My mailbox was stuffed and overflowing. The manila envelope Christine gave me was open. Inside was a copy of a land use easement agreement supposedly signed by me, except I never signed it. It looked like someone had forged my name. Also included were HOA board meeting minutes claiming unanimous approval to extend public community property into the adjacent unused pasturea, which they labeled as unused land, my land. Furious, I stormed out of the house and headed straight to the back barn. That's when I noticed something new. A large wooden structure painted white and blue had been erected just past the edge of my tool shed. A huge sign in front read, Cedar Hills Pool Clubhouse Grand Opening this Saturday. My jaw practically hit the floor. There were security lights installed, fresh concrete poured, and lawn signs directing visitors to parking areas right where my hay bales used to be. I grabbed the barn door handle, half expecting some of my tools or equipment to be missing, but what I saw instead made me freeze. Stacks of folding chairs, tiki umbrellas, boxes of chlorine, and even a locked refrigerator labeled HOA Use Only. My barn, my space, now repurposed like I didn't even exist. As I stepped back in disbelief, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around and there she was, Christine, in her beige blazer and sunglasses, clipboard in hand, acting like she was just checking out the place. "Mr. Morgan," she said smoothly, "you weren't supposed to be back until next week." I stared at her, fist clenched. "What the hell did you do?" She glanced down at her clipboard. "You didn't contest the land use request, and we had unanimous board approval. I assumed everything was fine." I took a step forward. "This is my land. You had no right." She raised a hand casually. "Sir, please let's not make a scene." Just then, I heard the wail of a police siren approaching from down the road. Christine gave me a small smirk and said, "You really should have read your mail." Then she turned and walked away. At that moment, I realized something far worse was unfolding. Who called the cops? Why were they coming for me? And how deep did this HOA scheme go? Let me ask you this. Have you ever been away from home, only to return and find everything you own treated like it was never yours? That's exactly what happened to me. This story isn't just about land, fences, or pool chairs. It's about standing your ground when you're being steamrolled. If you're watching this now, tell me, where are you tuning in from? Because what happened to me could happen anywhere. But trust me, this fight was just beginning. What the HOA didn't know was that I'd recorded everything, and I wasn't about to back down easily. The squad car pulled up at the end of my ranch road. 2 officers stepped out, not just one, but 2. One was Officer Raymond, a local deputy I recognized as the kind who usually smiled and waved when you saw him around town. The other was younger, with slicked back hair and dark sunglasses. I didn't recognize him. He looked like he stepped right out of a rulebook, stone-faced and eager. I met them halfway down the driveway, sweat dripping down my neck, fists still clenched from the run-in with Christine, who had vanished like a ghost after lighting a match on a haystack. "Afternoon," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I help you, officers?" Raymond looked uneasy. "We got a call about a trespassing complaint." I blinked. "Trespassing on my own land?" The younger officer stepped forward. "Sir, are you Daniel Morgan?" "Yes, we received a formal complaint from the Cedar Hills Homeowners Association. They claim you entered their private property and threatened one of their board members." Raymond cut in quietly. "Christine Blakely." I laughed, though it wasn't funny. What else could I do? "You've got to be kidding me." The younger officer's hand drifted toward his belt. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to calm down." "Calm down?" I raised my voice. "She built a clubhouse and a pool on my ranch, in my private property. I have the title deed right here. I've lived here 20 years. That land never belonged to Cedar Hills and never will." Raymond looked at the younger officer, then raised a hand to pause things. "Danny, you're saying you never signed anything giving them permission?" "Nothing at all, not a single thing. In fact, I think someone forged my signature. I've got paperwork inside." Raymond nodded slowly. "All right, we'll need to take a look." The younger officer looked irritated but said nothing. We walked back to my house together, and I laid out the documents Christine had left, along with my original deed, which clearly defined the property boundaries and not an inch belonged to Cedar Hills. Raymond studied the papers carefully. The more he read, the more his broken bar. Raymond's expression shifted as he studied the papers closely. "This signature doesn't match the one on your driver's license," he said, looking up at me. "Are you certain you didn't sign this under any kind of pressure or coercion?" I narrowed my eyes, feeling a surge of frustration. I've never even seen that document before this week. Raymond turned to the younger officer. We'll have to escalate this, probably get a county surveyor involved, maybe even bring the district attorney into the loop if there's forgery involved. The younger cop muttered, there's still a complaint filed. Protocol says we have to write it up. Raymond waved him off. We'll document everything after we figure out who really owns the dirt under that pool. Until then, no arrests. Turning back to me, he advised, Danny, you should probably get a lawyer quick. They left shortly after, snapping photos and jotting down notes. I stood on my porch, watching their cruiser fade into the distance, dust trailing behind it. I hadn't been arrested, but I didn't feel safe either. That night, I sat alone in my dark living room. The only sounds were the hum of the fridge and the distant laughter of kids still splashing in the pool on my land. I pulled out my phone and found the number of an old friend, Mark Jensen, a property lawyer I'd done some welding work for years ago. I left him a voicemail. Mark, it's Danny. I've got a real situation here. Some HOA folks built a pool on my ranch while I was gone, and now they're claiming it's public land. I think someone forged my signature on a legal document. I need your help fast. The next morning, I drove into town to meet him. Mark was a tall, heavy-set man with more beard than jawline, always buried in legal books and briefs. He listened carefully as I laid out the whole mess, then leaned back, running a hand through his graying hair. Danny, he said slowly, this sounds bigger than just a bad neighbor dispute. If they filed anything at the county claiming easement rights, or if the HOA bribed someone to record a false claim in the land officia, we've got a serious case here. He stood and pulled a manila folder from his cabinet. Let me run a record search, see exactly what they filed. If there's forgery, I'll find it. That gave me some hope until I got home that afternoon. The gate to my ranch was gone, not broken or damaged, just completely removed. In its place was a freshly poured concrete path running straight from the end of the hose street directly to the pool area. Cars lined the roadside, and folding signs read, Opening Week, Free Swim for Home Members, Cedar Hills Clubhouse. Families walked down the path carrying coolers, kids in tow with floaties, as if heading to Disneyland. Worst of all, contractors were digging at the far end of the pasture, laying pipes and electrical lines. I sprinted toward them, shouting, Who gave you permission to be here? One of the workers looked up, confused. We're working under a permit issued by Cedar Hills HOA. This land is zoned for community use, sir. I snatched the paper from his hand. At the top was a permit number and it looked official. But at the bottom, where the landowner should be listed, it didn't say Daniel Morgan. Instead, it read, Owner, Cedar Hills Community Board, District 5 Extension. I couldn't catch my breath. Somehow, my land had been reassigned, and in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was about stealing my entire ranch. Before I could even process it, a loud pop echoed, followed by a sizzling sound. The men digging started yelling, one screaming, Shut it down, shut it down. Smoke billowed from the ground. Someone had struck an underground power cable running from my original barn to the livestock pen. The trench caught fire, as thick smoke climbed into the sky, carrying the acrid stench of burning plastic and dry grass. I thought, this is war, and that was only the first blast. The fire spread quickly, licking across the dry grass near the trench and creeping toward the clubhouse fence like a living thing. One contractor grabbed a fire extinguisher while another barked orders into a walkie-talkie. Kids screamed, people grabbed towels, and fled the pool. From a hill near my house, I watched it all unfold, my stomach twisting into knots. I dashed to the hose beside the barn, turned it on full blast, and dragged it through the dirt toward the flame but it was too far, too late. A patch of grass suddenly erupted in flames. The contractors had no idea what they'd hit an old electrical line I'd installed years ago when I'd set up outdoor lighting near the fences. The line wasn't active anymore, but the wiring hadn't been fully disconnected. When they pierced it, they sparked a dry season nightmare. Then the Cedar Hills security golf cart zoomed across the grass, and who was behind the wheel but Christine Blakely. She pulled up, waving frantically at the contractors. Get water, she yelled, as if she wasn't the one who started all this. But I stormed toward her, every step burning with anger. "Do you even realize what you've done?" I yelled. "You trespassed, forged documents, and now you've set a fire on my property." She had the audacity to look offended. "Sir, please lower your voice. The crew didn't know there were live wires underground. This was a mistake on their part to knot the hose." "A mistake?" I shot back. "You took down my gate, forged my signature, built on land you don't own, and now you're starting fires. You think this is just a mistake?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She turned sharply to one of the contractors and barked, "Call the fire department." I was already ahead of her. I had dialed the moment the smoke appeared. Firefighters arrived in less than 10 minutes and extinguished the flames before they could reach the barn. Still, a large patch of my grass lay blackened, some fencing scorched beyond repair. Despite the chaos, Christine had the nerve to approach the fire captain. "We'll make sure the HOA covers repairs on their side," she said smugly. Their side. That was the final straw. I stepped forward and handed the fire captain all the paperwork, my deed, the property map, and the counterfeit permit given to the contractors. "This entire structure was built without authorization?" I said firmly. "This woman is claiming HOA rights over private ranch land that's never been part of Cedar Hills." The captain nodded slowly. "You're going to need the county involved, sir." That night, I returned to Mark's office and dropped the burnt fake permit on his desk. He stared at it, rubbing his forehead. "Danny, they actually filed something," he said. "I checked county records today. There's a document registered 2 weeks ago, a community easement agreement on part of your land. But you never signed anything." I nodded. "Exactly," Mark continued, "and get these, it was notarized in your name. But the notary stamp belongs to someone on the Cedar Hills board." Wendy Gilchrist, Christine's cousin. I slumped into the chair opposite him. "So what now?" Mark leaned forward. "We file a property dispute claim with the county, demand a full investigation into forgery and illegal development. We pull every record on your ranch from every angle and serve them with a cease and desist." My head throbbed. "And if they ignore it?" I asked. Mark's gaze grew cold. "Then we sue the HOA and every board member personally." Having a plan felt good, but I knew the HOA didn't play fair. They didn't ask permission and they acted first and covered their tracks. Sure enough, 2 days later, I woke to the sound of jackhammers. Throwing on jeans and boots, I rushed outside and nearly tripped over bright orange cones blocking my dirt driveway. City contractors were digging right through my entrance road. A short, round man in an orange vest waved me off. "Morning. We're here to finish the walkway extension. Should only take a day or two." "Who sent you?" I demanded. "Cedar Hills Community Development Office." I called Mark immediately. "They're paving a sidewalk through my ranch. They're treating this like public land." His voice was calm but sharp. "I've already sent the cease and desist. The moment they pour concrete on private property, we have grounds for an emergency injunction." I hung up and stormed toward the workers. "Stop what you're doing right now. You're trespassing. I have legal counsel on this." "Keep digging, and you'll be sued personally." They hesitated. Then the foreman pulled out his phone. I climbed into my truck and drove around back to find some space to think. That's when I noticed something strange. The back shed, where I kept my old riding mower and tools, was wide open. I hadn't been in there for weeks. I parked and walked over. The padlock wasn't cute, it was smashed off. Inside, everything was gone. My tools, gloves, even the chainsaw I used last fire stolen. In their place sat a plastic crate labeled HOA Pool Supplies Backup Storage. I stood frozen. They hadn't just stolen my land, they were now using my property like a storage unit. Rage boiled over. I grabbed the crate and hurled it out of the shed. Its contents and umbrellas, life vests, folding signs scattered across the dirt. That night, Mark called with an update. "They filed more than one document," he said. 3 months ago, they submitted a zoning overlay request, claiming they were negotiating with the landowner to convert the southern pasture into community space. They weren't, I said bitterly. "I know." Mark sighed. "They layered everything so well it looks legitimate unless someone digs deep. And Danny, they have friends in the land office. I'm almost certain of it." "Do you think this is organized?" I asked, dread creeping in. Mark's voice dropped low. "This isn't the first time they've pulled something like this." That's when the second wave of panic hit me. If they'd stolen from me, Who else had they targeted? That night, alone in the dark, I scoured property records, HOA news bulletins, anything I could find online. Then I found it. A blog post from 2 years ago. My family's acreage was absorbed by HOA. We were forced to sell. Same HOA. Cedar Hills. Same board president, Christine Blakely. As I clicked on the author's name, hoping to reach out, my screen suddenly went black. A power outage. I grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. That's when I saw them. 2 HOA security guards, dressed in black polo shirts, standing at the base of the hill near my house. One held bolt cutters, the other gripped my disconnected power cable. They hadn't spotted me yet, not quite, but I saw them, and in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a land dispute, it was a hostile takeover. And I was the only one standing in their way. I didn't hesitate. I snapped off my flashlight and ducked behind the porch edge, my heart pounding like a war drum. Those 2 HOA goons were trying to cut me off literally from power. They were bold enough to cut off my power right out in the open, right on my own land, as if they owned the place. My first instinct was to grab my shotgun, but I held back. I wasn't about to play into their trap and end up behind bars. That's exactly what they wanted me to lose control, look like the unstable rancher, while they played the calm, community-minded victims. Instead, I hit record on my phone, zoomed in, and captured everything: the bolt cutters, the cable, their faces, the HOA security logo stitched onto their polos like they actually had authority. Then I called out, "Hey!" They both jumped like they'd been shocked. One dropped the cable, the other tried to stash the cutters in a bag. "You're trespassing," I yelled, storming down the hill. "I've got you on camera. Cutting my power is a felony." They scrambled, tripping over rocks and dry brush. We were told this was HOA-managed land. One stammered, clearly rattled. "You didn't know?" I shot back. "You're standing 50 feet from my house and didn't know this was private property?" They said nothing, as they just ran off like cowards. I went back inside and sent the footage straight to Mark. His reply came in minutes. "That's it. That's enough for a restraining order and a criminal complaint." We filed both the next morning, but the HOA wasn't finished. That afternoon, a letter was dropped on my front porch, hand-delivered with no postage stamp. It was from Cedar Hills legal team, a cease and desist order against me. They accused me of harassing their staff, interfering with community development projects, and warned that if I set foot near the clubhouse again, they'd sue me for obstruction. It was ridiculous but also terrifying. They were pulling every dirty trick: legal threats, forged permits, staged power cuts, all designed to wear me down. Worst of all, they were twisting the narrative to make me look like the villain. I was the rancher, the outsider, the troublemaker who didn't follow HOA rules. Half the community probably saw me as some angry old man refusing to share. But I wasn't mad because they built a pool. I was furious because they stole my land, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. So I fought back the only way I knew how. With Mark's help, I gathered every piece of evidence we had: the forged signatures, the notarized records, county filings. I uploaded the video of the power line sabotage, included photos of the forged easement, the pool, the clubhouse, the workers, everything. Then we submitted it all to the county zoning commission, the sheriff's department, and even the local news. I thought it would take days to hear back. It took less than 24 hours. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't Christine. It wasn't the police. It was a reporter from Channel 9 local news. Emily Carr, mid-30s, short hair, a voice like velvet and steel. "I got your file," she said. "This isn't just a story, it's a bombshell." She asked if I'd do an interview. I hesitated. I'd never been on TV before, but I knew I had to. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. We recorded the segment right there on my porch. The camera panned over the pool in the distance, the clubhouse, the blackened grass still scarred from the fire. I told them everything. When the news aired that night, I watched from the living room, still powered by my generator, because my electricity wasn't restored yet. And then the calls came pouring in: neighbors, strangers, ranchers from other counties, people who had faced the same kind of harassment. Some had been pushed off their land by ruthless HOAs, others strong-armed into giving up property rights. I wasn't alone anymore, and that gave me strength. Then, 2 nights later, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address, no markings, just a plain black box. Inside was a dead rattlesnake, coiled and preserved in a sealed bag. Taped to the lid was a note: home meeting invitation, special closed session, property negotiations, Cedar Hills boardroom. Attendance strongly encouraged. No signature, no contact info, just the snaky a clear message. That's when I knew this was no longer just a civil dispute. It had turned personal. Someone inside Cedar Hills was trying to scare me off for good. I stared at the dead snake for a long time. My heart beat steady but heavy, like a warning drum pounding inside my chest. This wasn't a sick joke. It was a threat, a rattlesnake preserved and left on my doorstep like a sinister signature. I called Mark. At first, he didn't answer. When he finally did, his voice was sharp. "What's wrong?" "They sent a snake," I said flatly. "Who?" "The HOA. Someone dropped a dead rattlesnake in a black box and taped a note inviting me to a special session meeting." Attendance strongly encouraged. There was silence on the line. Then Mark muttered, "They've crossed the line. You think a broken bar legally? This could now be considered intimidation. Maybe worse. You need to call the sheriff's department and file a police report. We're not just dealing with a shady HOA anymore. We might be facing criminal threats." I took his advice. I filed the report. When the deputy arrived, he took photos of the box, bagged the snake, and told me to stay somewhere else for a few nights just to be safe. But I wasn't going anywhere. This was my land. I didn't care if they dropped snakes, lawsuits, or bulldozers on me. I was staying. The next morning, something unexpected happened. I got a call from someone I didn't know. Gavin Brooks. "You don't know me, Mr. Morgan, but I used to be on the Cedar Hills HOA board before Christine took over," he said. I sat down slowly. "Okay," I said. "I saw the news last night, and I just wanted to sigh. You're not crazy. You're not imagining this. She's done this before. She buries people with legal paperwork and intimidation until they give up." I leaned forward. "So, she's done this to others?" "Yeah, 2 years ago, she tried to rezone a public trail into a gated road. Claimed it was for security. Lie. It led straight to her brother's house. Last year, she pushed the HOA to buy the empty land next to her lot at double market price. Said it would be a community garden, but she planned to sell it to a developer." My stomach turned. He kept talking. "She's got friends on the zoning committee, the permitting office, even the notary who stamped that forged document. I've met here." "She wasn't a real notary back then." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the first person who actually stood up to her." I didn't, and I regret it every day. He gave me his number and said I could call anytime. That's when something shifted inside me. I realized I wasn't alone. There were others afraid. Silence. But if I could bring their stories together, I could prove this wasn't just one bad actor. This was a pattern of abuse. So I started gathering everything: emails, calls, testimonies. Mark helped me organize it all into a formal complaint to the state attorney general's office. And just as we were wrapping it up, a black SUV pulled up. A black SUV rolled into my ranch driveway. 2 men stepped out of black suits, dark sunglasses, and not cops, but too polished to be anything casual. They didn't introduce themselves. The older man stepped forward and said, "Mr. Morgan, we're here representing the Cedar Hills Development Council. We'd like to offer you a financial settlement." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "We understand there's been a misunderstanding with the community expansion. Our client wishes to resolve this without further legal action." I crossed my arms. "What's the offer?" $750,000, he said. "For the South Pasture and Clubhouse zone. You keep your main residence, North Pastures, and full house rights. In return, you agree to drop all legal claims." I laughed. Cold and bitter. "You want to buy me off? This offer is good for 48 hours only. Tell Christine and her goons I wouldn't sell if you offered 10 million. The man adjusted his tie. "Then we'll see you in court." As they drove off, kicking up dust along my ranch road, I didn't feel fear. I felt something else: rage. Cold, focused rage. Because now I saw the whole game. They planned to drown me in court battles, bleed me dry financially, destroy my reputation, paint me as the problem, isolate me until I broke. But they miscalculated. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every rancher steamrolled by red tape, every small-town property owner told they were in the way, every silenced voice crushed by committees drunk on power. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the next morning came with a knock on my door. It was Jesse, my ranch hand pale, shaking. "Boss, you need to see this." He led me to the lower field where my cattle should have been. The gates were wide open, fencing sliced clean, and every single one of my cows was gone. Only hoof prints marked the dirt, and a laminated sign zip-tied to the fence. "All livestock must be cleared from common use areas immediately per HOA Ordinance 12C. No signature, no warning, just another silent act of war. They had stolen my livelihood. If they thought a stolen herd would break me, they were about to learn what a true rancher does when you try to take everything he's built." The wind whispered across the empty pasture, full of curses. No cows, no hoofbeats, just silence. That sign fluttered against the fence like the final insult. "All livestock must be cleared from common use areas immediately per HOA Ordinance 12C. It was nailed right into my cedar post. They hadn't just trespassed this time, they stole my herd. Over 50 head of cattle, calves included. Some I'd bottle-fed myself. I knew them by name, knew their rhythms and temperaments, and now gone like ghosts in the night. I dropped to my knees, ran my hand over the dirt. The hoof prints pointed south, deep and grouped, likely forced. Jesse stood behind me, jaw clenched. "They broke the latch clean off," he said. "Used bolt cutters, found the lock dumped in the grass." The fence was sliced near the tree line. No blood, no drag marks, and no predators. This wasn't nature. This was planned. It had Christine Blakely's fingerprints all over it. "Call every neighbor within 10 miles, I ordered. "Every rancher, every landowner. Someone has to have seen something." Jesse nodded and jogged toward his truck. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mark again. "I need this on record right now," I said. "The host stole my cattle." He exhaled deeply. "That's livestock theft. That's a felony. We're past permits and zoning. We're in criminal territory now." "Danny, you think she'll cover her tracks?" "She'll try. But cattle don't just vanish. They leave trails, especially if she moved them illegally or tried to sell them. I want her arrested." Mark didn't answer right away. "You're going to have to push hard, loud, public. We need pressure." That's when the idea hit me. I went back inside, set up my tripod, and turned on the camera. My voice didn't waver. I didn't shout. I simply told the truth. 2 weeks ago, I returned from a cattle auction to find a pool and clubhouse illegally built on my ranch. The HOA claimed my land was public property. Without my permission, they forged documents, sabotaged my power, sent fake security officers to threaten me, and now they'd stolen my entire herd. I stepped aside and let the camera sweep across the empty pasture behind me. "This," I said, "is what abuse of power looks like. If they can do this to a seasoned rancher in Texas, they can do it to anyone." I uploaded the video to my YouTube channel and shared it across every rancher forum, local group, and even the Cedar Hills community page. Within an hour, it had gone viral, comments flooding in from all over the state. Then a message popped into my inbox. "I think I found your cows. They're being held at an old rodeo pen 2 towns over." Cedar Hills board truck was spotted unloading them yesterday morning. Attached was a grainy photo of my trailer, my cows, and standing next to them, Wendy Gilchrist, the fake notary and Christine's cousin. I jumped into my truck and tore out toward the old rodeo pen. It hadn't been used in years. Rusted gates, grass growing between the boards, but inside, sure enough, my cattle were penned in, sweating under the hot sun with no water troughs or feed, like they'd been abandoned there. A security guard blocked the gate. "Private event," he said. "This is my herd. No ID, no entry." At that moment, 3 pickups roared in behind me, dust flying. Mark had called for backup, a local sheriff's deputies. They stormed the gate, flashed a court order from the county judge, seizure papers and emergency animal welfare orders. Christine wasn't there, but Wendy was. She came rushing out of a side tent clutching a clipboard like it was some kind of shield. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding. The HOA was protecting the animals until what?" I snapped. "Until you forged a document claiming I gave them to you." She froze. The deputy cuffed her without a word. One by one, the cows were loaded safely back into my trailer. They were shaken but alive, A few needed medical care, but I had them back on the way home. Jesse rode in the truck bed, tossing hay flakes to calm the cattle. When we crested the final hill and saw the ranch entrance, Christine and 3 HOA board members were waiting there, holding a stack of documents. I pulled up, stepped out. "You've got some nerve showing up here." Christine didn't flinch. "We're here to negotiate," she said. "We believe this has all gone too far." I stared her down. "You believe this went too far? After trespassing, forgery, sabotage, a fire, and now livestock theft?" Her face twitched. "I didn't authorize that." Wendy acted independently, yet she had your board truck. Silence. Mark arrived minutes later, stepping between us. He handed Christine a thick envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A restraining order, effective immediately. You must stay 500 feet away from this property, and you are barred from all contact with Daniel Morgan. The state is opening an investigation. You'll be served within the hour." Christine's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You will." She turned, climbed into her luxury SUV, and peeled away with her board members. As the dust settled, Jesse leaned on the fence beside me. "You think it's over?" I shook my head. "Not yet." Then a boom. A loud explosion erupted from behind the clubhouse. Smoke billowed, thick and dark. We ran toward the fire, and what we saw made my blood run cold. The pool clubhouse was engulfed in flame as not a small fire, but a raging inferno racing through the building. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Jesse turned to me, stunned. "You think they did this on purpose?" "I don't know," I said. But in my gut, yeah, they're covering their tracks. If I don't stop them soon, someone's going to get hurt or maybe worse. Flames clawed at the sky like angry hands. The once pristine clubhouse, marked clearly home members only, was now a blazing wreck. Fire licked the tiki bar's roof. Glass from poolside lights shattered and crackled under the heat. Lawn chairs melted like wax around the burning structure. I could feel the heat from 20 yards away. Sirens wailed in the distance, if fast, urgent. The fire trucks were coming, but I knew they'd be too late. The clubhouse was already lost. Jesse grabbed a garden hose and sprayed the surrounding brush, trying to stop the fire from spreading to the pasture. I did the same. We worked like madmen, buying time until the professionals arrived. Minutes later, fire crews barreled down the access road and I backed away from the blaze. My shirt soaked through, chest heaving as firefighters aimed their hoses at the collapsing beams. A deputy showed up, had the same one from the rodeo pen. He glanced at the fire, then looked at me. "Is this another retaliation?" he asked. I shrugged, my voice rough. "Or maybe someone tying up loose ends." Just then, a car pulled in fast. "Mark," I said. He didn't wait for hello, so he jumped out and made a beeline straight for me. "Danny," he said quietly, "I just got word a whistleblower from inside the HOA came forward this morning." My ears perked up. "What?" She saw Christine shredding documents last night, a HOA meeting minutes, permit applications, even notary logs. One of the files had your name on it, marked with red X's and a note, "A clear before Thursday." I stared at him. Mark went on, "This fire isn't just destruction, it's evidential elimination." We turned back to the flames. The clubhouse and with it, everything they'd built illegally was burning to ashes. Fraudulent permits, false blueprints, fake extension plans, all gone. But it was too late for them, because we already had copies. I'd photographed everything when I found those boxes in my barn. Mark had filed scanned versions with the county. The paper trail wasn't lost, it was secured. By nightfall, the fire was out. All that was left were twisted metal, scorched patio bricks, and a still steaming pool filled with ash. The next day, everything came crashing down for Cedar Hills HOA. Maria Carter, a former HOA secretary and whistleblower, released a secret audio recording from a board meeting weeks earlier. In it, Christine could be heard saying, "We just need that old man to feel like he's surrounded. Then we push the rezoning, forge the easement, and clean up the land before he knows what's happening." She laughed. Others agreed. Silence. Then another voice asked, "What if he doesn't go quietly?" Christine's answer, "Then we make it messy." That audio hit the local news like a bombshell. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain, I was the victim. Public opinion shifted fast. People rallied. HOA members resigned. The zoning office launched a full investigation. Christine Blakely was arrested, along with her cousin Wendy of the phony notaria and 2 other board members tied to the forged documents and livestock theft. Charges ranged from criminal trespass and forgery to fraudulent zoning filings, animal cruelty, racketeering, evidence tampering, and attempted land theft. They were all facing serious time. The entire HOA board was disbanded by court order, and me, a month later, I stood on my porch watching the morning sun rise over my untouched fields, a coffee in hand, boots in the dirt. The clubhouse was gone, the pool was gone, the hoe was gone, the ranch was mine again. But it wasn't just about the land, it was about justice. About saying no loud and clear when people try to rewrite reality with money and power. About standing up for the little guy, and about reminding the world that you don't mess with a soldier who knows how to fight back. Especially not on his own turf. To everyone watching, tell me, where are you tuning in from? And if you've ever dealt with an hoe that pushed too far, I want you to comment below. Not on my land because they thought they could silence me, but now, they're the ones without a voice.